call you in order. And we'd ask you to come forward a little bit because there are people trying to get in and out of the,
We know that.
Voter in, thank you. All right.
Senior moment.
I'm going to start this off with a few comments, and if we have anybody from the press here who hasn't received a copy of what I'm going to be saying, just tell me and I'll be happy to provide that to you. Okay? Right. We're here today to preserve the sanctity of each person's right to vote.
That's right.
Take note. This fight is not about anything other than the effort of some in one political party to disenfranchise another's right to vote. The proof is who is challenged. Unilaterally, they are members of the opposition party. We want to make it clear, each of these challenged ballots has been double and triple checked by the Board of Elections. Signatures match the election book signatures, both on the application for and the absentee ballot. Neither is this about a voter who filled in their ballot or how they filled in their ballot. It's about what party they're a member of. It is not about did your marker go outside the circle. It's about your voter registration and your economic status. Look at the town of Plattsburgh. 39 ballots have been challenged. Remarkably, 31 of those are Democrats. 4 are Independence Party voters. 2 are blank, and 1 is a working party member. The basis of these challenges is that the ballots were brought into the Board of Elections by either a working party member or a Democrat. That is the right of the voter to designate someone to take their application to the Board of Elections and to have that person pick up the absentee ballot and bring it back to them, if they so wish. And that right is well established in election law. If it weren't, why would the ballot, the application for the ballot, have a specific place on which the voter can designate the person to whom the ballot is to be given? The Democratic Party did not challenge any of the almost 40 ballots Bill Ferris hand-delivered to the Board of Elections. He was a Republican candidate in Ward 1. The Democratic Party did not complain last year when Mr. Doheny mailed applications for absentee ballots to every Republican in the congressional district. His election committee hailed that as a get-out-the-vote campaign. Again, this is about suppressing the votes of those you believe may not have voted for your party's candidates, intimidating future absentee ballots, and giving the working families party, a black eye. Well, we're here to make the point that we, the Democratic Party of Clinton County, will stand up for all voters. We are here to defend your right to vote. We encourage people to exercise their right to vote. We're not afraid of the process. We urge our court to direct the Board of Election to open those ballots and let democracy work as it is intended. Thank you.
My name is Gerard Bernadette, and I'm a member of the Republican Party and an outgoing elected official on the town board in the town of Plattsburgh. I was asked if I would mind coming and speaking today. The basis of my being here is that in the 17 years that I've held political office, I've been through approximately 6 campaigns. 4 of those 6 campaigns resulted in recounts, close races, close enough that ballots could have been challenged. At no time during those times, during the recount, did I ask for any ballot to be recounted. I think it's the right and the responsibility of voters who want to vote to cast those ballots. That's my unprepared statement. Now for my prepared statement, which I'm sorry I didn't make out for the press, but I believe that these absentee votes should be counted. The reports of alleged fraud and other charges of violation to election law were made several weeks ago. It is my understanding that these charges are being investigated by the agencies charged with that responsibility. I have also heard that certain zealous individuals have taken it upon themselves to conduct their own investigations, some of which may have developed into serious breaches of the law themselves. The North Country doesn't need this type of negativism. The right to vote and be heard is sacrosanct right, and a mere possibility of fraud should not become a vehicle to silence even one legitimate vote.
I believe you have something to present.
I'm getting in front of him, never see
Good
said.
afternoon. My name is Cindy Garant, and I am the vice chair of the Democratic Party. And I'm here, like everyone else, because I too am outraged over the whole idea that every person does not have the right to vote, and that people are being intimidated, and we're worried that those people will not practice their right to vote via absentee ballot. Standing beside me is Carrie Lampkins, and Carrie has asked me to read a letter to you that she has, and your husband, or you, or that you, okay, that Carrie wrote. My husband and I chose to vote this year via absentee ballot. Upon making this decision, we felt it was the right thing to do, considering we were going to be able to make it to the polls on election day. We feel, as maturing adults, that it is important for us to start voicing our opinion in the community and putting forth the effort necessary to ensure we have a voice. After placing our vote for the party leaders of our choice, we felt validated and confident that our opinion matters, only later to find out that our motives will now be questioned. The values of our effort is now in limbo. And now, only to add insult to the situation, I was later bothered on Sunday afternoon by Tom Metz and Bill Rudvig and asked ignorant questions. We felt bullied, harassed, and intimidated by these men who questioned about our intentions and capacity to make a valid and legitimate decision. We have done nothing wrong. If anything, we have done something right and something important for our community. The voice of our elders always stresses the importance of the younger generation voting and being a part of this process. We have done just that, and just to be told that it might be thrown aside. We are outraged, and our confidence in this system has now been shaken. We have practiced our right only for it to not be validated. What is going to make me keep returning to the polls in the future? Thank you for your time, and please give us our voice. Signed, Carrie Lampkin.
Anybody have any questions?
So you're saying you want those ballots to be challenged to be open and counted?
Correct.
Is that a matter for the commissioners or is it the court?
Commissioners.
There has to be a claim filed with the court, and that, I believe, has to be done before the close of business today, at least in regards to the ballots that were challenged on Monday. There would be a separate 72-hour period that will mature tomorrow at the close of business. I think it's logical to say if they don't challenge by the close of business today, they're not going to challenge by the close of business tomorrow. But then, if that were to be the case, the judge would set a time, and there will be a court action after which a decision would be reached. But if no action is taken, if that claim is not made and no action is taken, then those ballots are open. Yeah. So tomorrow they could open the ones that were challenged on Monday, and on this coming Monday they'd open the ones that were challenged on Tuesday, if there were no challenges. Now we don't let me put words in the mouth of the Board of Elections. They can answer that question specifically. For all I know, they could decide they're going to stay in.
Okay. Beyond that, are you planning any other action or?
No, that's the action. We would, if it goes to court, it goes to court, and we've retained the services of an attorney to represent us and to represent the voters who are being disenfranchised. I mean, we have an unbelievable situation where, you know, I can tell you, I know of a situation where two people, relatively prominent people in this community, were going to Florida on their vacation. They didn't realize that they could vote absentee. When it was explained to them that they could vote absentee because they were going to be away on election day, they did that. But because a Democrat, God forbid, a Democrat carried those two ballots down to the Board of Elections, they were challenged. Period. It ain't more complicated than that.
You saw the response from the Republicans already. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I'll read a couple words, okay, because I think it's I think this is absolutely unbelievable. Somebody was in a hurry to come up with a good rationale. I've also got a letter here that I wouldn't mind reading. It happens to be a letter to the editor of the Press Republican, which has not yet been run. So Mark Dame is going. Do I have permission to read this?
Yes, Mark.
Thank you. So Mark Dame is going to challenge my mother's absentee ballot because I hand carried it to the Board of Election Office. I did joke with her that I shouldn't lick the envelope because we didn't want Mark to find my DNA there. Lots of seniors and citizens who work several part-time jobs to make ends meet just can't make it to the polls, even if some are in town that day. The law allows this. Many of them don't have family to help, so they're very grateful when a worker shows up at their door with an application and later a ballot. Shut-ins in particular love to converse about the amendments, who's on the ballot, who might be best and why. Others just check and sign and nothing's said. It's certainly possible, though, that their gratitude to the worker who brought their ballot influences their vote. If Mr. Dame had done this work himself, he couldn't help but realize how heartbreaking it is to suggest that these voters had taken part in a felony. The citizens who do this work should be commended for their efforts. The one I know personally are honest, hardworking, and idealistic. They love democracy and do not share the cynicism that allows Mr. Dame to characterize a vote as a scam and absentee voter ballots as fraud. They should be commended for the hours they spend on the street trying to help every possible citizen to cast a vote. They're my heroes. I see this as one more act of voter suppression that the Republicans are pursuing nationwide. Several cases are going through the courts right now. They seem to believe the lower the voter turnout, the more likely they are to win. How sad for democracy. Well, I know I gave that to you, but I gave it. This is a response from James Carlin to Joe LaTemplio, and it's signed by Don Lee, the Clinton County Republican Chairman, Richard Cantwell, City of Plattsburgh Republican Chair, and James Carlin, Town of Plattsburgh Republican Chair. We sympathize with those absentee voters whose votes have been mired in the ballot objection process. The absentee ballot process, when properly used, is an integral part of every election, put in place to ensure every citizen has a chance to exercise their right to vote. Due to the actions of a few people, our candidates have been put in a position where they have to protect their rights as well as the rights of the overwhelming number of voters who would be disenfranchised if this alleged misuse of the absentee ballot process is allowed to go unchallenged. It appears that some of those casting absentee ballots were coached and misled into misrepresenting their status on applications, which enabled them to obtain ballots for misstated reasons. We believe that in the overwhelming number of cases, these voters were totally unaware that their applications were marked to indicate that they would be out of the county on election day or that they had some sort of disability that prevented them from going to the polls. They are the ones who may have suffered the ultimate disenfranchisement, their choice to legally participate in the election process. Our concerns are legitimate and significant, and we don't believe this inherent injustice should be allowed to go unchallenged. It's puzzling that when we raise well-founded concerns in the way the absentee ballot process was utilized, we are painted as trying to hijack the process or intimidate voters. In past elections, the local Democratic Party has utilized the objection process to ensure the rights of their candidates and voters whom they felt were being disenfranchised by alleged misconduct. At that time, they couched it as upholding the integrity of the system. We would expect them to defend our right to do the same. The New York State election law allows for the objection process to help ensure the sanctity and integrity of elections for everyone, no matter which political party or candidate they support. Okay? As is typical, the verbiage used here is difficult to argue against, but it does not apply to the process as they have put the process into motion. I pointed out, okay, the disparity in the number of ballots that were challenged. If in fact this were to be a concern, why wasn't there any challenge of ballots that were brought in to the Board of Elections by people other than registered Democrats or working family party people? Is one process sacrosanct and the other process, inherently flawed? I think not. Okay? And I think that, yes, they could have a situation. We had 1,100 absentee ballots cast in Clinton County. Could there be a situation where there are 2 or 3 people who have, completed applications, or affidavits? And I question how, whether there was any intimidation that went on in gaining those affidavits. And that's why in a court of law, they'll be asked to come in and to testify, to verify the veracity of the affidavit. But, when you stand on somebody's doorstep and you threaten them that if you're here on election day, that's a felony, and then you tell them that you're after an affidavit from them, I will question, who's doing the intimidation in that process.
A lot of people say that it's the system that needs to be changed. If you want early voting, fine, change the system.
We definitely want early voting, and if we didn't have a Republican controlled Senate in the state of New York, we'd have early voting. But the Republican Party in the state of New York, not the people who are in the Republican Party, but the elected officials of the Republican Party don't want early voting. We do not have any examples nationwide of where Democrats have set about systematically trying to suppress the opportunity of people to vote. We don't have examples of where they did have early voting and all of a sudden the number of hours got changed. Okay? Now you got to go to Florida, and you got to go to Texas, and you got to go to Virginia, and you got to go to Wisconsin to find those kinds of behaviors. You don't find those behaviors in the state of New York. Anything else? Yes.
Mr. Mannix, it seems to me that there is a system here in place whereby people can challenge votes, that it will work its way out. If it goes to the judge will make his decision. If these were fraudulent, he'll say they're fraudulent. If they weren't, he'll say, fine, cast them. Is that not what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. And what we're saying is that we want to assure the people that we are going to be here to make sure that system gets played out correctly.
Well,
Okay? We haven't, tried to make a quantum leap that, like I said, 1 or 2 situations that may exist out there, okay, that as somehow, taints all these other ballots that they want to challenge, okay? Hasn't been the case, all right? And we know that, and I think that will come out very clearly in the court if we in fact have to go to court. It will come out very clearly.
So if you don't go to court, then they'll be cast.
Do you want to come up and give a speech, or are you asking questions?
No, I ask you a question.
And I answered.
Okay. So there is a system.
Anything else? Yes.
May I say a word in response to her? I'm sorry I don't know who you are, but I wrote my letter after Mr. Gaines said that he was going to automatically challenge every ballot that was hand-carried to the Board of Elections.
It's his prerogative.
You know what? It is not.
Yes, it is.
He has to find cause like in any other law.
That's correct.
But the fact that they were hand-carried included my mother, who is 87, another friend who's in a wheelchair, and his wife isn't strong enough to get it in the car. And we have to take the time and the money to go to court to make this an acceptable way to vote? I think not. This is sheer intimidation on Mr. Dame's part.
You know going to court.
One other point that I would make.
Identify yourself.
What's your name?
I'm Debbie
Blake,
Blake,
is her
and there is a system. There's a system. He has a right, and Mr.
That's been established.
That's
Nobody's
correct.
disagreeing with you, Deborah. Nobody is disagreeing with your comment. But I do want to tell you that we read in the paper that this was a cause. And he was going forward, even though he knew he had his election already wrapped up, he was going forward with this cause. Amazingly, when they were done challenging ballots in the city of Plattsburgh and challenging ballots in the town of Plattsburgh, all challenge stopped. There was a tie election in the town of Schuyler Falls.
Mr. Mannix.
No, I'm going to finish, please. There was a tie election in the town of Schuyler Falls. Mr. Dame did not involve himself in any way in that. A tied election in Altona. Mr. Dame did not involve himself in any way with that. So the cause célèbre, okay, paled as soon as the campaign situations that he was concerned about were dealt with, okay? And believe me, we understand. Part of what we're trying to do is assure voters that we will be in court.
Good.
We will be there, okay, to wage the fight to secure their right to vote. Rocker, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, I was going to ask you if there was, my name is Rockwell Blake.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if, according to what you have said, the force of you, or the thrust of your point, is that for practical reasons, Mr. Dame should have just stopped, shouldn't have actually gone out and made the effort. So is that right?
That is what I said.
But you have, that's the point of
You want a
your...
copy of my remarks? I didn't say that.
No, you just did.
No, I
You said
didn't.
why did you
I
do
said
this?
when he got done challenging in a couple places where there were elections that he was interested in, he stopped. And there were other elections. He's the one that said he was going to go throughout all of Clinton County because
I didn't know that.
Oh, he did. It's in the paper. And if it's in the paper, it's got to be true.
Well, Mr. Mannix, my question is whether or not one should, at any time in the political theater, stand on principle.
Absolutely.
And not a matter of practicality. Once an election has been settled in advance, if there is anything to discuss, anything that on principle may be a little bit shaky, we should just leave it alone. Because in effect, it's taken care of. It's just a practical issue. Or is principle worthwhile pursuit?
That's not our position. I don't know whose position. And I don't see the Republican chairman of either Clinton County here. I know they signed an email they sent over to the Press Republican, but I don't see them here. Okay? We're digging into our pockets to pay for an attorney in the event that we need to have someone to represent people whose votes are being contested. I think that's a principle, and we're standing up for those principles.
Well, it's good that you defend your position.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else? Thank you all very much for listening.